Thank you for our subscribers and our contributors keeping this podcast moving forward. Today I am joined by an old friend, Aditi Narayanan. She is a student activist for environmental protection and reproductive rights here in Arizona. Recently admitted into Dartmouth University, she played a crucial role in the youth climate marches in 2019 and continues to be an upcoming leader. How's the COVID pandemic treating you, Aditi?
I've been quarantined for the last 2 months because the first 2 weeks of March, I think I might have had corona, so I've been quarantining, getting an antibody test soon, so after that, we will see. But, it's been rough. I've seen my friends, but from 6 feet away with masks. Not the ideal senior year, but I'm better off than a lot of other people, so it's okay.
Always important to keep in mind, but how's the process of antibody tests in Phoenix right now? Is it easy to get one, or has it been a challenge?
I'm lucky enough to have insurance, so it's easy to get one, but also early March when I asked for a test for the disease, I couldn't get one because we didn't have enough, so that's pretty crazy. But it shows that we're getting more resources over the last 2 months, I guess, so that's good.
I've heard internally from some of the local politicians we're working with that there's some numbers coming out soon, and that the projected rates of infection are much higher than they thought they'd be, especially with everything reopening. You think in your community, is there a lot of people out and about? I know when I was in Phoenix briefly, that I saw just a lot of people doing their thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I haven't been out in a long time. I don't even get groceries anymore because we briefly got them delivered, and now my dad goes to go get them. So yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you. I know most of my friends are doing their duty social distancing, except for the ones that are essential workers. But yeah, no idea.
Oh, fair enough. Let's move on to something that the reason I brought you here is you work in the environment. Now, can you just tell for everyone that just might not be too familiar, what was the youth climate marches all about, and when was that taking place?
Well, the Arizona Youth Climate Strike, we held our first March 2019, and we kind of moved on from marches as a way to um, establish an influence in the community, more towards town halls and lobby days, and just talking to legislators about climate policy. So yeah, it's we've had a lot of effort, whether it's press conferences, those kinds of events, etc. But now, of course, all of our work is digital. As we started in March, so we're kind of working more on team restructuring and kind of adapting to digital organizing. So that is what we're working on right now.
Where's Dartmouth at? I forget. What state?
Dartmouth College is in Hanover, New Hampshire.
Will you be joining the local climate initiatives there, or what's your general future in the environmental policy?
I'm not sure. I know I definitely want to do research in that regard, probably incorporating climate justice and economics or climate justice and political science. But in terms of organizations, I'm just not sure.
One of the things that impressed me a lot by your guys' activism was how effective you guys were getting in the news. And I just want to pull back some quotes and kind of get a better understanding of what you guys are trying to do. So, Cronkite News reported that you're calling for the protection and restoration of 50% of the world's lands and oceans, including deforestation. Is that still your goal? Have you guys moved on beyond that, or is that still the main directive?
I think honestly now we've been focusing less on climate policy and just mutual aid for the community amidst the current economic and global crisis. So, if I were to discuss the failures of the government right now, it would be addressing coronavirus. So, yeah, and coronavirus is also affecting the same marginalized communities as climate changes. So, I think we're just focusing on getting that first issue addressed before we move on to climate justice.
So how do we address that first issue? Where's the first step?
Well, we only have the power right now to address it locally. So whether it's talking to legislators about freezing rent and mortgage payments, or just keeping people updated and doing community education on how to stay safe right now, etc. That's kind of what we've been working on because, again, if we could change national policy at the moment, we would. But yeah.
So, have you guys had any success in any of your measures? Is there anything that our people should be keep an eye on, maybe help out with?
Yeah, our mutual aid efforts are really useful, and we post a lot of fundraisers all the time, especially for the Navajo Nation, which has been hit catastrophically by the coronavirus crisis and made national headlines. So if you see any fundraisers on any of our social media, we go by at Climate Strike AZ on every platform. But yeah, just donating to those, amplifying those efforts if you can't donate right now because not everyone can. Yeah, we've kind of moved a little bit away from the stuff we used to be able to do, which was like lobbying, and more towards community education and just fundraising and supporting people because that's what's most important right now.
For your people, if you want to relay messages back to them, our Humanity Forward is offering COVID relief funds, just giving people $250 in cash to anyone that might be financially strapped right now. So you go to Move Humanity Forward for that. But what on the local level, what is engagement in politics like? What is that dynamic like with your representatives?
Yeah, it used to look like just finding out what bills that we supported, whether it was something about solar energy or about restoring public lands, and we would just delve into those. But now, of course, the legislature isn't in session, so now it's more about local community efforts rather than in politics. But yeah, it used to look like even finding out city councilors and things like that. There's a lot of people in government that people don't understand have a lot of power over their lives. Everyone thinks that, change comes from Capitol Hill, but in reality, where we can affect the most change and where it matters most is local government. So that's kind of where we delved into it.
What changes did you guys manage to get through the art in our local policies?
Definitely, yeah. So we managed to sway a lot of votes on local bills. So again, like I mentioned, the one on solar energy and another one about public lands usage and just kind of making sure that those are protected. And we also got a lot of people involved in politics, which I'm going to consider a success. It's just kind of like showing students that they too can start talking about what they care about. And we also held recycling events and things like that and cleanups, so those kinds of like small scale things. But yeah, once we delved into politics, it was more about bringing in awareness to community members. And working with elected officials and candidates to get climate justice candidates elected.
Who are your favorite representatives?
I don't know, like nationally or locally?
Locally, nationally, any way you want to take the question.
Sure. I mean, Senator Bernie Sanders has always been a political idol to me. I like how he champions the Green New Deal and Medicare for All. And Medicare for All, he's been on for a very long time. It's consistency. It's important. And then as candidates, I like Ava Putsova. She's running in AZ's 1st Congressional District against Tom O'Halloran, the incumbent. And she also champions those same policies. Also, like AOC and Ilhan and like all of those people. Yeah.
During the primary, there was a little bit of a schism between Senator Sanders supporters and the Andrew Yang supporters. So, looking at our movement on the outside, what did you think of our structure and what we were doing?
I didn't know much about your structure, but I saw a lot of grassroots support for Andrew Yang. I even got one door knocker from him. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting. Again, I didn't support him, but I like the idea of universal basic income. Not exactly the way he did it, but I thought that it was that a lot of them were progressives and kind of aiming towards the same goal. And like kind of understood that there were internalized inequalities in society before Trump came, and Yeah, I mean, I think that it was just a very grassroots act. Honestly, it kind of reminded me of the election in 2016, but they reminded me of the Sanders supporters, like very grassroots, not really taken very seriously in national politics, but should have been because there were really new ideas.
Is the 2016 is especially interesting looking back on it. The dynamic, Senator Sanders brought was very profound, but it was surprising that he didn't do better than he did in his 2020 election. So why do you think his polling numbers kind of dropped this election cycle?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. Like I don't know. I thought they were going to be bigger.
It
Um,
looked good.
yeah. I mean, I think he dropped out a month into the crisis. That could have been an effect. A lot of people weren't able to vote, didn't know how to vote online. Also, his base were young voters, and it was a time of change for them, and a lot of them have had been subject to voter suppression. Like I was reading stories about Michigan State and UMich,
Mm-hmm.
where which is a crucial state that Bernie lost this year that he won before, and there were just lines upon lines. People couldn't wait 2 hours to vote. There wasn't a lot of efficiency. So yeah, I think just a combination of voter suppression and just losing the youth vote.
Would you have wanted to see a more of a coalition of the progressive candidates before voting started, or like how should we start building communities between each other? Because I do think you're right that our goals are leading in the same direction.
Honestly, I'm not even sure of my own political trajectory right now because it was kind of related to the future, and now I just don't know. But yeah, I think it's important for progressives to to not unite around the same people that they support because that doesn't matter as much, but the policies that they support. I know there were a lot of Yang supporters who liked Medicare for all, who liked the Green New Deal, who had other stuff in common like that. And just uniting around those goals is what's most important rather than the people again. Um, but yeah, I mean, I couldn't even tell you what the future of American politics holds right now. So
Yeah, everything is so chaotic, and especially after the centrist left broke the progressives
yeah,
after, in South Carolina, it was kind of amazing how effective the coalescing of the center was. Like
yeah,
I didn't even I expected them to coalesce because obviously that's how elections work, but it just crushed the the progressive mindset for whatever reason, like very effectively.
yeah. The way they all just endorsed him, like that was so fast. Yeah, definitely.
So one of the things I wish I'd like progressives to start discussing is how change is implemented. Now we kind of have this theory that change comes from the bottom up within the grassroots, but we
Hmm.
kind of put a lot of faith in governmental institutions to solve the biggest problems of our day: climate changes, student loans, like Medicare for all, big challenges. But I think I'd like people to start thinking about how we can transcend these problems to bottom up solutions. So my question is, where do you see opportunity for local people to have clear impact on these bigger level issues?
Sorry, could you rephrase that?
Yeah, so how can the average person in Phoenix impact the student loan crisis, or impact our healthcare situation right now? Like where are those opportunities for the local level?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of organizing groups. Actually, one of my complaints is that there's too many that kind of do the same thing and that they
That's
should
true.
coalesce together. Yeah. Um, but yeah, just joining a group of like minded people and starting to see where they can move into policy is really important. And again, I think starting at the local level, passing a Green New Deal at your city council level, or talking to local politicians about where it stands and where the student debt crisis stands, or yeah, just starting at a local level and then moving into national politics or running for office themselves. I'm seeing a lot of people empowered to do that recently because they're just so disappointed at the inadequate response of the government right now. And I mean, I am too. So yeah, just definitely time to take charge.
Now, we won't be able to enact anything we want unless we convince some conservatives that these policies are right. Do you think the policies themselves are incompatible with conservatism, or do you think it's something else that's blocking these people from leaning our way?
Well, to your first point, I think it is important to get some conservatives to vote, but also, kind of, there's a huge, huge base of electorate that just doesn't vote, whether it is students or a lot of disillusioned people of color or anything like that. So I think revitalizing that base, who are pretty left but also just not motivated to vote, is a huge goal of progressives in the first place. Yeah, and with that said, I don't think they're incompatible at all. I think a lot of people don't really know how um, politics really affects them and just can be radicalized just if you explain how policies work. Just people need to be open to that, to recognizing that they're wrong.
Well, when I was campaigning in Iowa, a lot of our efforts was more about building a connection rather than
Yeah,
arguing in favor of our policies. Do
exactly.
you
That's
th-
really important, is finding common ground with the people that you're trying to see stuff in common with.
But is the common ground on the goals, or is it something just as basic as treating people with respect?
I think it's both. Yeah, I think it's just definitely both. Treating
So
people with
yeah,
respect and finding stuff in common.
in that vein of respect, is there any conservative policies you do agree with that maybe your progressive peers do not, or anything like that?
Um, I would say I lean a little bit right on gun rights, more than most progressives, but I also like believe in common sense gun regulations. So I don't know. It just like it's a spectrum, right? So
Yeah, the gun rights is especially important in Arizona. I mean, I remember I was at a Republican town hall meeting, and one of the individuals, his sole concern was gun rights. And that's kind of astonishing considering everything that's going on in the world.
exactly.
And I think the left would be wise to kind of give on a lot of these social issues that maybe do not have the biggest impact in the grand scheme of things.
Huh?
I said it. I said it might be wise for progressives and Democrats to give on some of these social issues so we can make gains on some of the more systematic inequalities we see.
I'm so sorry. I don't know why I don't understand what you're saying, but can you say
So
that?
should we give on gun rights? So maybe we don't pass common sense gun reform in exchange for a Green New Deal, or like what social issues do we need to plant our like do we need to stand up for, and what social issues that maybe we can give the conservatives what they want?
I don't think that's how policy works. I don't think you just exchange issues in politics. I mean, I do get what you're saying that, like, yeah, if some politicians make concessions while standing strong on others, I see the merit to that, but also, I don't know. I think there's nuance to that. Um, yeah, because again, not even all progressives agree with each other. People just strongly disagree with each other um, on a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think like even within the Bernie Sanders movement, like I worked on his campaign a lot, and everyone I met disagreed with each other on a lot of things. Um, so yeah, I don't see the concession thing because I don't see that as how politics works. But in terms of individual candidates and campaigns doing that, yeah, I definitely understand that. I see it all the time in Arizona as just people making concessions on their policy because they're trying to win the moderate vote. And I guess it makes sense in Arizona. But there's some stuff that you just can't. Sorry, there's just some stuff that you can't compromise on, like Medicare for all, in my opinion.
Well, is there not a when we talk about Medicare for all, are you proposing the Sanders legislation, or are we talking about just having universal health care accessible to people at a low rate?
Um, yeah, I know. It's weird that it's become a politicized term that's like viewed differently, right? Like, remember how all of the Democratic candidates said they supported it, but then they like twisted it around, like Medicare for all who want it, etc.
Yeah, Yang got criticized for doing that.
Yeah, especially because it seems like a change, and a lot of people do like consistency. Um, but then again, would his UBI policy have covered that? I don't know. But like, also his UBI policy came with giving up social services, so that's
well, means test of social services, which are very ineffective at the goals they're trying to accomplish.
Like which ones?
So think of SNAP benefits. If you have to be required to do a bunch of testing to see you're not on illicit substances, if you have to meet a certain income threshold to receive it, or be below a certain income threshold to receive it, it places a lot of barriers in the way to receive the care you need, rather than if you get the cash up front without any means testing, you can best decide on how you want to spend it.
Okay, I will look into that later. But yeah, to go back to your question, I mean the Sanders version because I think that's the best version of Medicare for all, and it's just the way without involving private insurance companies. Because a lot of politicians are like, if you like your insurance, we can let you stay on it, but private insurance comes with a lot of drawbacks, especially as we're seeing now in this pandemic. People are losing their jobs and immediately losing all their healthcare access, and with very difficult way of getting onto their next insurance, and they have Cobra, which costs a lot of money, and things like that in between. So yeah, I honestly think the best way is without private insurance in the way.
This pandemic shifted my thinking on Medicare for all. I originally thought that a robust public option would be sufficient to just get everybody accessible care. But in terms of national security, can we afford to keep having pandemics like this without an adequate government response? Because this will only become more relevant. So speaking of the future, I like to ask people, what do you think the world's going to be like in 2050? Especially because both of us will be around by then. It's something we'll have to face instead of people in the older generations maybe not making it that far.
Honestly, again, I couldn't tell you. I get very anxious thinking about it because I don't even know if I'm going to be going to college, so I really don't know. And
I'm going to hold you to an answer. Just kind of think your best case scenario. What does the world look like in 2050?
I mean, the best case is we get our crap together on climate justice and stuff, and we reach equity and stuff, and no one goes hungry. No one is homeless. Like, very, very basic things to reach. But yeah, I know.
Yeah, these are goals that we can accomplish now, though. We have enough housing to support every individual in the United States. We have, right?
Like, there's so many empty houses that just no one's in. So yeah, I don't know. And then I don't know, international cooperation, international peace. These same goals accomplished internationally, which is harder but important. And if we have 50 years to do it, why not start now?
How about the worst case? If nothing changes or our current trajectory, how bad off are we?
The current trajectory, then we do not make it 50 years. We've got like 10, 15 tops.
Now, I've heard a lot of scientists report that everything's just going to be too little too late at this point. Do you believe that? And if you do, what's the point of climate activism at this point?
I think they are referring to that in terms of governmental policy, but I mean, in terms of like corporations getting their crap together, which they won't, but that would really fix the problem. So, yeah, like I think when scientists see what we can do to address climate change, like a lot more of them need to see like if corporations started to, be checked and regulated and stop polluting, then that would have a major impact as well. So I don't know. I don't think that would be too little too late. But if it is, then I don't know. That's just what it is.
Do you
Honestly.
think? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no. I used to think of stuff very far ahead, but now I just keep thinking of like the next month, the next week. So that's why I just couldn't tell you.
No, that's reasonable. This pandemic's really narrowed our focus. It'll be interesting to see the. I'm interested in seeing the data, the environmental data coming out of this pandemic. Maybe we just need to lock down human society once once a week every month, and that will be enough. Well, because we are seeing some gains in a lot of places we thought were pretty dire in circumstances. Do you have an opinion on nuclear energy? I know that was something I criticized Senator Sanders non-supportive.
So, nuclear energy, if we do it right, would be an amazing energy source. But my concern is with the waste disposal and the amount of water it uses.
Hmm.
Specifically, when we look at Arizona, right, it uses a lot of water that we just don't have. Of course, if we found a way to recycle that water, I know there's research into that, so that would make it really great. And so, yeah, right now, I like the concept is great, but the way to execute it, they're right in saying that it hasn't been done well in the past. Like in the past, again, people have just dumped the waste on indigenous grounds. It's been causing pollution, things like that. So, again, conceptually, good idea, and execution needs to be researched about before we implement it.
My own organization, Humanity for Arizona, is very eagerly looking into our water policies to try to. We think we're going to enter the political arena to try to advocate for water policy. So, what's your take? How do we fix the water crisis that's surrounding the southwestern region?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, good question. It comes with just like addressing community needs. First of all, I think the government just does a lot of things that they aren't like checking in with rural communities to see how much water they need or like seeing how much they're using. Just kind of doing their research. Honestly, it would be a really good start. Um, and then when it comes to Phoenix itself, there's a lot of water wastage that they could address to make sure that to mitigate those and then send the water to the people that need it. Like I think there's a lot of water wastage in like Gulf and stuff. Like just a
That's
lot of
true.
smaller things that can be mitigated. Um, I don't know, decorative fountains, things like that, and just a lot of those can be mitigated and make sure public water is protected for the people that need it.
This notion of water as a public good, I think we may need to reevaluate. We might need to put a price on water to properly evaluate its what's it called, its worth, because people kind of have they don't I don't think they respect the fact that they have running water freely available to them, and by putting a cost on excess water, like you said, on those golf courses and those water fountains, people might realize the worth of it a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if making it a private good would really help. I think people would just buy them and still misuse it. I think it
Well,
just
at the very least, you get more revenue to put towards the problem if you price it.
I guess I just think that makes it less more inaccessible. Like again, a lot of rural communities do need that water, and they're already economically strapped. So I don't know. I don't know if that'd be a solution.
It'd be interesting to look at. We'll definitely have to do a deeper dive in the future. So if you could wave your hand and do anything to revitalize our economy right now, what do you think would be? You said you're interested in economics, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the step right now isn't to revitalize the economy, which is what all the states are doing. I mean, yes, but it's more of making sure everyone is safe and protected and making sure there are no more deaths. So I would,
Well, we are facing a pretty
yeah,
horrific
exactly.
jobs crisis right now, though.
So it would go hand in hand. So I think a lot of countries are addressing this crisis better than us, and it would go hand in hand with the stay-at-home order in states that haven't overcome its curve yet. But along with the stay-at-home order, I think the notion of stimulus checks to families, but more so because a lot of people are still suffering with the stimulus checks. Also
Hmm.
paying essential workers more. And that way, yeah, sending money to these people is the best way to revitalize the economy because people can just start spending. Yes, I mean, it is going to be on essentials and things like that, but it will stimulate the economy while also keeping people alive. I think those two hand in hand are the most important priority.
I think that's very well put. And we're gonna round off this conversation by asking you a tough question. Progressives are in a very tough bind electorally right now, whether standing up for their principles and showing the center Democrats that they need to viably look into their ideas and implement them, or do we face another 4 years of President Trump and all the pitfalls he has for progressives? So where do you stand on the issue?
Whether on voting for Biden?
What advice do you give to your other progressives? You don't need to exactly say if you're going to vote for Biden or not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my place to tell people who to vote for or even where to stand on that because, I mean, like, here's the thing, right? Because, like, last year I encouraged people to vote for Hillary Clinton, but I also, like, wasn't as far left as I am now. But, I mean, Biden has very sketchy history on sexual assault and race issues and a lot of other things, so it's not my place to tell them to support them or not. But I mean, I know a lot of leftists that are supporting him and a lot that aren't. Personally, I used to subscribe to harm mitigation as an important way to vote, which, as you probably know, is just saying, hey, it's not my ideal policy, but if it's a little better, then that's the world I'm going to sign up for. So yeah, I know a lot of people who are dealing with that and a lot of other people who just don't think they can. So I guess my advice is just not to be preachy to other progressives. I think like a lot of centrist Democrats.
That's fair advice.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are just saying like,
fair.
He's not Trump, like you have to do that. But I don't know. I think having the audacity to saying that to either like Black people or victims of sexual assault or other people who have been impacted adversely by things that Biden has done in his past is not fair. But yeah, I think also centrist Democrats should just focus more on like less on the he's not Trump part and more on actual policies because that's what people like Yang and Bernie really did and that's how they got that grassroots support. So just changing their messaging would be a good start.
Now, would that be recommended to Vice President Biden is to change his rhetoric, or is there something more that he could do that kind of reassures you as a left-leaning person?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of his ads and stuff on YouTube and a lot of emails because
Great.
Email does definitely a Democrat, yeah. So I and a lot of it is just again anti-Trump messaging. I think focusing, yes, that's important, and yes, that will get a lot of voters, but also focusing kind of more on issues themselves because there's a lot of people who don't hate Trump and they're just here kind of seeing politics as a matter of issues. So focusing on that and the character attacks, yes, but also in hand with policy and kind of moving forward and kind of having positives almost. And like, for example, there's this whole area of coronavirus where he could totally stress his healthcare approach and things like that and all the failings of the Trump administration. But he's not so far. So yeah, just taking charge of that.
All right, you heard of Vice President Biden. You know what you need to do now. And thank you, Aditi. If you want to have any closing thoughts, you're welcome to. Anything you're working on, or we can just close the show out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not working on much, definitely, but I definitely will be in the future, maybe getting some kind of online job of sorts, or maybe starting to work again in person. But yeah, just to anyone listening, if you are feeling disillusioned right now, that is a totally fair response to what's happening. And you have all of summer to kind of figure out where the trajectory of your life lies forward. So that's kind of
hopefully only summer.
Exactly, that's how I've been thinking. But yeah, thank you for having me, Kyle.
We appreciate it, Aditi. You have fun in New Hampshire?
Yes.
Great. Glad I remembered. All right, that was a step forward in talk. Thank you to Aditi for coming on. Everyone, please sign up for the Humanity Hangs if you're feeling lonely during these times. They run twice a week right now. If you need any financial relief, go to movehumanity4.com. We are giving $250 microgrants out to people in need. and do all you can to help each other in these times.